In your role as president, 3 years. Now, typically the term, I know from what I understand, the terms have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was president-elect for a year, then you become president, and then you advise for that third year. And we've had a little bit of change in how that occurs. And yet you're still with a 3-year term. How did that feel? Because in some cases you were able to see things from start to finish. What were some of the accomplishments that you saw in those 3 years that you're really, really excited about?
I brought up the
Membership?
the membership and growing and including more people into our rank.
Yes.
I think it also exemplified a solid membership base and a solid leadership team when we were recognized on the global stage twice as chapter of the year. So I'm proud of that accomplishment, not because of what I did, but because of what the leadership team did and how our membership grew and supported us in helping them make the decisions and helping them grow the chapter forward. So that was a big accomplishment there.
That is huge. What are some of the, just so for folks who are new to PMI, what are some of the qualifications to become chapter of the year globally?
I would like to say I could answer that, but we really don't know. A lot of time, it used to be when I was president, we had to apply for the award, and there was
Okay.
and Lori will attest, and so will Michelle. It was a huge undertaking. It wasn't just, oh, we're applying. It was a huge undertaking.
Yes.
Now we're to the point where they choose who they want to apply, and then we can apply. But we don't really understand what the criteria is. We just tell our story, and then we either recognized or not. So.
And what story did you tell?
Well, the one was community engagement. So we really put into, like I had said, we were pushing to get the community engaged, bring people into the fold, promote people joining PMI. We saw a growth spurt. We saw our membership numbers going up. What we also saw was we were becoming a model chapter. We were taking the risks. We were documenting the risks. We would go to our national conference in a year and we would find out that we would tell our story and people were listening to our story and they were taking elements from our story and taking it back to their chapter to make it better. And I think part
Wow.
of the award was because there was a recognition that we weren't focused just on Rochester. We were focusing on project management as a whole and willing to share our experiences to grow project management globally, not just within Rochester.
Okay. And were you able to go to those other chapters and see those differences that happened? Where any of those chapters come back and share, hey, we took this element of what you shared, your lesson learned here, and we applied it here?
Yes. I'll give an
Can you?
example, an operations
Yes.
manual. We have an operations manual that we maintain within our chapter. It basically tells us how to run the business. And we maintain it, we update it periodically just to make sure we've got everything in there, it's accurate, it's up to date. Not a lot of chapters have an operations manual. So we've been to national meetings and regional meetings where we've said, we have an operations manual. And people will look at us and say, what is that? So we'll show them, we'll share, and we'll describe why we do it, what we do. We'll depart, we'll come back together at the next meeting and we'll say, hey, we implemented that operations manual. That was a great template. And this is what's happened to our chapter because of it. That's one example, but those are the types of things we would do. Now, it's not just one way. We go to the events and we see things, we bring it back to us, and then we can make it fit our needs.
Yeah.
And again, we can push it out and say, look, we took this idea, we've modified it. Here's a suggestion of how other chapters could utilize the idea in their chapters.
That is fantastic. So we're sharing, we're learning, we're giving, we're receiving, we're growing, and we're growing all together as local chapters.
Yes.
All right. One of the other, that's 2013, 2016. So 2 times membership growth, 2 times chapter of the year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
It is.
If you look back on your presidency, knowing what we know now, knowing the lessons learned we're taking out of COVID, out of this worldwide pandemic, do you look back and say, I wish I knew that then, I would have applied that then, or if I go back, it give me an opportunity to make this change that I always wanted to make? Is there anything that you look back on and say, I'd love to do this?
I think it would be the technology.
Yes.
We had the technology for virtual meetings. We dabbled with it, but we never really engaged it. Um,
Okay.
and I think if we would have done more with virtual meetings, we probably could have built a bigger foundation, given more value to our members as well as communities around us, and that would have set a bigger foundation, a more solid foundation into Michelle's leadership and Lori's leadership to to keep that going. And we could have seen different opportunities like seminars and et cetera, that could all have been virtual. But
Hmm.
when I look back, that's one thing I wish I would have leveraged more was the technology.
Okay. And we have opportunities to leverage that now
Yes, we
and make
do.
those changes now.
Yes, we do.
I will tell you that as a mom of two young children, I couldn't ever make it to a chapter meeting.
Hmm.
That would require a babysitter. So it's fabulous that we are all jumping on that, virtual learning bandwagon. And
Exactly.
I love it. I love that we're doing that. I'm very sorry there's a negative impact to this world that is having us refocus in a different direction, but
But we're choosing to make the best of it. We're not choosing to sit back and wallow in it. So I think that's a positive for our community and what we do in our chapter.
lots of lemonade.
Yes, lots of lemonade.
Lots of lemonade. We have, we've talked about these amazing moments you've had in your presidency. What would you do if you went back? How would you kind of reset a couple of things? And we talked about technology. Did you have some challenging moments where you thought, oh my goodness, I don't know how we're going to do this? Or this is a really tough one. Did you have any of those kinds of examples or scenarios happen in the 3 years that you really overcame and applied every single project management skill you had to make you and your leadership team and the members to make it happen?
I think part of it was volunteerism. At
Right.
the point in time, it was obvious we needed volunteers, um, but I don't know if we were as successful as we could have been in soliciting volunteers, and not just soliciting volunteers, but showing what value you get out of volunteering. It wasn't just a
Yes.
PDU, but there's a sense of pride. There's a sense of learning new experiences, a sense of learning new tools, um, and professional development. Um, so that was a challenge I think that we faced at the time, um, that we really had to work to overcome. And we had good people in leadership positions that came up with different ways of attracting volunteers and selling that value proposition and getting people interested and excited to be part of the PMI Rochester volunteer ranks. So,
What were some of those examples? What did they do?
well, for example, Ithaca. Ithaca was a small piece of our chapter, an integral piece of our chapter, a small piece of our chapter, and we promoted volunteerism in Ithaca with the intent of let's bring more people from the Ithaca community into the PMI Rochester family. So Dina Maxwell was down there at the time, and Dina was able to work with Lisa Stensland, who had actually started the Ithaca branch down there, and they were able to work with us and sell that value proposition. And we saw the foundation or the membership in Ithaca grow to about 10-15% of our overall population within the PMI Rochester membership. And that continues to grow. It's a very solid membership base. So um, that was
And
one way that we overcame that.
for the folks who are new to PMI chapter,
Mhm.
how is Ithaca related to PMI Rochester? Can you explain that structure?
Yeah, they're a branch. So
Okay.
they're part of the PMI Rochester family. They're not an official chapter, but they're the branch that feeds up through Rochester.
Okay.
And the branch was set up before I joined the board because there was a need in the Ithaca area for project management support. And at that time, they either had to go to Syracuse or they had to go to Binghamton. There was really
Okay.
no coordination or connection with the chapter. And prior to me joining the board, they came up with an idea of a chapter or building a branch out of Ithaca, and then they were absorbed into our family and are still there today.
And we'll notice them as that separate branch in pmirochester.org on the website as well.
Yes,
I think there's an Ithaca tab. And so that
there is.
explains that as well.
Now we need to
Okay.
be careful because they're not a separate piece. They're all part of our family. They're integral members to our membership. But as far as the flow of the organizational structure, yeah, they're a separate entity, or they appear to be a separate entity than PMI Rochester, but they're all part of the same family.
That's really good. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. And they're the only branch we have, right? Binghamton is its own chapter.
Yeah, Binghamton's its own chapter, and
Okay,
Syracuse is. So they're the only branch that we have with PMI Rochester.
gotcha. And then Buffalo, of course, is its own chapter as well.
Yes.
But those are surrounding chapters in upstate New York.
Yes.
I'm terrible with geography, but I think that we've covered all of them.
Yeah. So actually, we're part of a region 4. So PMI is broken into various regions, and our region consists of 24 chapters that go from Michigan to the East Coast. So
Wow.
all of our chapters work together to stay on top of the project management trends and give back to our membership. So Binghamton and Rochester all fall in that great big family of a region.
That's fantastic, and that's good to know. And how many regions are there in the United States?
In the United States, and I think total we have 23 regions globally. I'm
Okay,
not sure how many are right in the United States.
we have many globally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And is there ever an opportunity through PMI Global to have international connections or sister chapters internationally within other countries?
Yeah, we get exposure to that. So there's two events that we participate in every year. One is the region meeting, where the 24 chapters get together and we discuss region issues, and PMI comes in and they kind of tell us what's coming down the pike with PMI Global, and we get to share and learn from each other. Then every year we have what's called the Leadership Institute meeting, which is the LIM, and it's actually 3 days before the Global Congress. And where the Global Congress is open to everyone, the LIM is open to the leadership of all the countries around the United States or all around the world. And that's our opportunity to form relationships, form networks, um, build a sister chapter type relationship. And then every year we go back to that session and we can reconnect and we can say, hey, what's happening, what's happening. So that's our venue to do that global reach out to other chapters.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All right, that's a good thing. I don't think any of us know how, well, many of us do. I know I don't, and I'm still learning about PMI Rochester. I'm not from the area, and I'm new here as well in the last couple of years. So this is all fabulous and fascinating information for me, because we always think our reach is just this little bit, and it's huge. And then to your point, you're mentioning, being a servant leader, being humble, don't be afraid to roll your sleeves up and get into the mud and do the block and tackle approach. But also it's about building relationships and building that network